Hello and welcome to the latest Autovista Group Insight video. Here the Daily Brief team takes a deep dive into the biggest automotive topics. I'm Tom Gegas, Daily Brief journalist.
I'm Daily Brief editor Phil Curry.
And I'm senior data journalist Neil King.
Now, the automotive industry has been exceptionally hard hit by the coronavirus. The European Automobile Manufacturers Association recently revised its 2020 registration forecast for passenger cars, down by about 25%. This would mean roughly 3 million fewer new vehicles on the road compared with last year. This is hugely problematic for manufacturers. So they've been calling out to governments for incentive schemes to help them basically revive demand and put them back on the road to recovery. This does look to be happening, although there is undoubtedly a drive towards greener e-mobility. This could see electric vehicles really benefit. Neil, how are incentive schemes benefiting battery electric vehicles, or BEVs, from a price and total cost of ownership perspective?
Yeah, I mean, what we've done recently here at Autovista Group is we've developed the first in a series of new TCO dashboards. The first one focuses on the C segment, BEVs, and within that we compare the Hyundai Ioniq E, the Volkswagen e-Golf, the BMW i3, and then obviously the petrol version of the Golf for comparison purposes, as well as the Golf GT plug-in hybrid. We've done that for the four markets, so France, Germany, Spain, and the UK. And I mean, essentially, the first core finding is that, not surprisingly, given the higher price point of the BEVs, for battery electric vehicles, they come in generally around €40,000, depending on market, about £35,000 in the UK. Not surprisingly, even with the incentives, from a price point, they still cost more than equivalent plug-in hybrid and, more to the point, petrol vehicles. Now, but as I say, that's even with incentives. But you have to, consider, of course, though, that electric vehicles clearly have much lower utilisation costs, and so from a TCO perspective, certainly in France and Germany, where let's say the healthiest incentives are already in place, and to a lesser extent the UK, the battery electric vehicles are competitive. I mean, bear in mind, this obviously already reflects the latest incentives in France, which were introduced on the 1st of June. So for fleet buyers, that's now €5,000 for battery electric vehicles, and for private buyers, it's actually €7,000. And also the incentives that were introduced in Germany at the start of the year. And bear in mind, at the moment, that totals about €6,000. Well, it does total €6,000 for a BEV in Germany. And from the 1st of July, that will be extended. So the governmental component, which is half of that subsidy, will increase to €3,000 to €6,000. And so there's going to be an incredibly healthy incentive of €9,000 for battery electric vehicles in Germany from the 1st of July.
So are there any notable exceptions?
Yeah, I mean, I think the crux of the analysis was that the e-Golf is actually, was the TCO champion in all the four markets under review. But, you must bear in mind that partly to improve their presence in the market and obviously reduce their average fleet emissions and just to generate more interest in their electric vehicles, Volkswagen quite dramatically reduced the prices on the e-Golf. The other factor, of course, is, though, that this follows on from Volkswagen announcing prices for the new ID.3. So, the crux of it is that it's only really, as I say, that sort of combination of incentives and lower list prices, specifically for e-Golf, that makes it the TCO champion.
But of course, governments can't subsidise BEVs forever, can they? So what is the long-term solution?
Well, I think it's fairly obvious, really. I mean, the incentives, yes, they are providing an excellent short-term boost, and making electric vehicles competitive, if not from a pricing perspective, at least from a TCO perspective in those markets. But inevitably, governments, as you say, can't support this forever. And when they're withdrawn, we're back to the square one, essentially. And so ultimately, the only viable long-term solution is that battery electric vehicles need lower list prices.
Phil, we're seeing many of these incentive schemes focus on battery electric vehicles. So will this prove beneficial to the technology's uptake?
It will prove beneficial to the awareness of the technology, as those looking to purchase a new vehicle will undoubtedly be buoyed by the incentive schemes enough to look. And of course, it will also prove beneficial to the environment and to governments who are chasing a reduction in their air pollution levels. But it won't prove beneficial, I believe, for the automotive industry as a whole. Europe is facing an economic crisis following the coronavirus pandemic, and the automotive industry has been hit hard twice. Sales have dropped because car makers were virtually unable to sell vehicles while dealerships were closed during lockdowns. And now that they've opened again, what we're going to find is a financial downturn in European markets. And as we know, when a financial downturn occurs, big ticket items go out of consumer minds. Now, I'm not against BEVs, I just want to point that one out. I'm looking forward to the introduction of some exciting models in the months and years ahead. But I think crucially, what the automotive industry needs right now is sales.
So have sales of BEVs progressed in the last few years?
Well, the popularity of BEVs have been increasing in the last few years as more models become available and obviously the charging infrastructure across Europe increases, making them more attractive to consumers. In 2017, there were just over 97,500 registrations of BEVs across Europe, and that's grown to 147,600 in 2018 and 285,300 in 2019. That's according to figures from the European Automobile Manufacturers Association. Even looking at Q1 2020, which takes into account some lockdown beginning in Europe, BEV registration totaled around 91,800, close to their full year total in 2017. However, this is minuscule compared to diesel and petrol sales. Diesel has seen a slump of 2 million vehicles across the same 3 years following the Dieselgate scandal and demonisation of the technology. In this time, BEV sales have only grown up by about 190,000 units, almost 10% of the diesel slump. The other 90% has been taken up mostly by petrol, which has grown around 1.4 million units in the same 3 years. The rest has come from hybrid, plug-in hybrids and other alternative fuel markets. So while BEV sales are increasing, petrol and to a lesser extent diesel still remain vastly superior. This means that while new incentives may increase sales, it is clear that consumers still want to consider traditional internal combustion engines.
So what can governments do, if anything?
Well, the problem that governments face is that any incentive on petrol and diesel, even if it involves a vehicle renewal scheme designed to take older vehicles off the roads, is going to be met with criticism and calls of hypocrisy. Europe has announced its own Green Deal, and member states, together with the UK, have plans to reduce carbon emissions to virtually zero in the coming years. Countries are also planning to ban the sale of petrol and diesel vehicles in the coming years, so boosting sales of these now will meet with similar calls of hypocrisy. Car makers too are going to grapple with a range of emotions. On one hand, they need help to sell vehicles, but they also need to meet strict CO2 emission levels that have been set out by the EU. And selling more petrol and diesel vehicles, especially at this critical time, will increase fleet averages and lead to larger fines. So it's almost a no-win situation for them. Now, this is an opportunity for the BEV market, but Europe and its national governments need to be ready to tackle any criticism that comes from a charging infrastructure that's still in its, let's not say infancy, let's call it pre-teen phase, and vehicles that are still prohibitively expensive for many, as we've just heard. I believe more investment needs to be pumped into the charging infrastructure as quickly as possible. And governments also need to look at state-backed grants to manufacturers for the production of BEVs, which, let's face it, is not a cost-effective technology to develop at the present time.
Well, thanks very much, Phil. That actually brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you both, as ever, for your insights.
No, thank you.
You're most welcome. Good to see you guys.
And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel on YouTube to get all the latest Daily Brief videos. You can also sign up to the Daily Brief email at autovistagroup.com/sign up. That way you can get the day's most important automotive news straight to your inbox. You can also follow us on Twitter at autovista_group and connect with us on LinkedIn. And if you are into podcasts, look us up on Apple, Spotify and Google for our news roundups. But for now, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.